Hello, everybody. This is Noah and John, and we are from Urban Digs. And Johnny, we're talking Manhattan today, and we got a special treat. We got Nikki Field, all right, who everybody knows, and then we got Philip White, the CEO, president and CEO of Sotheby's. Thank you so much, and we're going to get some really cool insights today. Thank you for joining. And Nikki, let's get right into it. What is going on in the Manhattan markets? Interest rates are going up. Is buyers, sellers, what are they thinking? Tell us what you're seeing.
Good morning, Noah, and good morning, John. And it's a good day for me too, sitting next to Philip White, CEO of Sotheby's International Realty. We're always keeping our eye on the macro market, what's happening out there beyond the hinterlands of Manhattan, because we are clearly focused day to day on New York buyers. What's happening today, specifically regarding the pending interest rates climb, fear and movement. We like that in a market. Fear means people need to make a decision sooner than later or get out of the party, and they're doing that. We have accelerated a number of clients in the last 2 weeks with the fear of the climbing interest rates. What also has accelerated is negotiations. Rather than this long dance that we've been experiencing because buyers have all the power, and they still do, the dance is much shorter, because the clock is ticking with the interest rates. And I hear it over and over and over again. Let's get this done. My mortgage broker is telling me I got to lock in my number. So the acceleration of negotiations is certainly facilitating faster deals, generally stronger deals, because there is a motivation about that interest rate number. We're thrilled. We look for all extenuating reasons for people to make a commitment in Manhattan. And as you well know, you've been reporting on it regularly, accurately. Manhattan is selling. It's in a boom period right now.
Yeah, deal volume is off the charts. I am not seeing any slowdown. So there's a fear of missing out. There's a little FOMO going on interest rates. They don't want to let it get past them. They want to lock it in. Phil, I want to go right to you on the macro side. You see a bigger, broader picture in terms of interest. What are you seeing in other sectors or from your position with the data coming in?
Well, as it relates to interest rates, I think we all kind of anticipated they would go up. I think the real question is, how are they going to impact the equity markets? And, in our part of the space, really buyers are more driven by the wealth factor, if you will, the equity markets. And they can tap into that type of portfolio really instead of a mortgage. And in some cases, those rates are even less than, the prevailing mortgage rates. So, I think I see that more. But, the age-old, adage is that increasing interest rates do spur people on. So there's that. The other backdrop from a macro view, not necessarily New York City, but, as we all know, there's a scarcity of listings. I think there was a poll done recently with top brokers, and that was their number one concern. 79% of them said that was their chief issue. And, and you can certainly see it, go around the country, pick up any kind of, regional local broker website, and you'll see where an agent maybe, used to carry 25, 30 listings in some cities, they might be down to 5. I know an example like that. So I think that's probably, and again, 79% of a universe of brokers said that was their chief concern, even more so than interest rates rising.
Right. It's a really interesting point. One of the pieces we put out over the weekend was a kind of a deep dive on mortgage rates. And we kind of looked at what's the correlation between, mortgage rates, at least in New York City, mortgage rates, the number of contract signs, price per square foot. And really the correlation is extremely weak. I mean, it's not zero, but it's certainly not close to 1. So there's a little bit, clearly mortgage rates are part of the puzzle, but they're not they're not the entire puzzle itself. But it's especially true, I think, that pull forward, especially when it comes to sort of higher priced properties, when that mortgage bite is going to be a much more significant chunk of money. And I'm curious, Philip, Nikki, if this is one of the things you're seeing, is that we've really seen a race, to get these luxury contracts signed. Nikki, if you could speak to Manhattan in terms of what the luxury market is doing, and Philip, I'd love to hear, from your perspective, sitting on top of the national data, Sotheby's International, even international, is the force in luxury buying right now? Is this a global phenomenon, or is this sort of more an urban phenomenon?
Well, I'm glad you call it a phenomenon because it actually is happening. From Sotheby's perspective, and particularly in New York, our luxury market is the 20 million and over. So we're really talking serious luxury here. Mortgage rates have no impact on that. These are all cash guys and women. All right, so that there's not even a concern, a comment, or an indication that that is their motivation. Their motivation is securing really solid, best-in-class properties now rather than later. They feel, and these are really smart, well-invested, successful people that feel that the play in real estate is a solid, smart one right now. You, both of you know, because I sent them to you, we've been doing a lot in private offerings recently. This past week alone, my team rolled out an $85 million private offering and a $70 million private offering. We are truly shocked at the amount of interested participants that have contacted us in these last 3 days over those two listings. These are all cash buyers. These are portfolio builders, and these are people that recognize best in class, and that New York is now soon to be, in many of their perspectives, starting to take off again, and prices will be zooming and looking for an opportunity market that we're exiting, but still offering.
Hey, Nikki, could you just quickly, for people that may not understand, could you explain the difference between private offering that you're talking about and this $85 million offering?
Private offerings in our industry are those that do not go public, that are not on listing portals, that are not advertised, that are not marketed. We look for directly the client and present this private offering, not available to anyone other than those that are invited, or their representatives, their wealth advisors or their brokers. These are people we know are in the market, or these are people that we know are not necessarily in the market, but not only can afford, but have shown and have a reputation for buying best-in-class properties.
Yeah, I could just add a couple of things here. So, we have a lot of things happening geopolitically right now, as we all know.
Yep.
It's awful what's happening there. But the beneficiary of some of that unrest, instability, has always been New York City, and the U.S. just because of our stable economy and our political system. So, I think that bodes well for the real estate market as a whole here. I think the other thing that I think about over my years of being in the business is, with inflation pressures, that tends to increase tangible assets like real estate. So, smart investors do look at it that way, even in light of the higher interest rates. But the inflationary pressures do accelerate price appreciation. So, it's not just 100% negative is what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and Philip, I love the way that you look at it because, in times of a little bit of uncertainty, there's a demand for dollars, right?
Yes.
There's demand for US dollars, and you're seeing the US dollar go up right now. In terms of New York City, John and I have always said that we look at New York City, it's very different than other urban markets. It has behaved very differently than other vertical markets across this country, especially since the pandemic. And I don't think that we're a market that you could say we have tight inventory. I mean, it's not super tight, but we have low inventory, but we didn't have an unsustainable price action boom. So, and for very good reasons, there's some issues that I think New York City is still dealing with. And I want to pivot to that because one of the issues that we're not at full capacity, and one of the reasons why we are a bit of a depressed market related to those other verticals is the fact that we don't have the foreigners. We don't have the foreign buyer back. And I want to go over there because, Nikki, I know you have a good sense on this. Are you seeing an uptick in inquiries from foreign buyers, or is that still kind of just flat and here and there?
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
They have been circling, and certainly they have been keeping tabs with what's happening in New York and the whole U.S. market. They've been looking for their opportunity and their opportunity in particular to deploy dollars. Canada and India are now our two most attractive investors over the last 2 quarters in New York specifically. Canada's been coming down in mass in the entry and mid-level. India, quite surprisingly, no one saw this coming. Mid and upper tier buyers are here. They are locking in some really significant luxury properties, and they're doing it with cash. So they are here. Obviously, we're looking for others to follow them. My Moscow desk is silent right now, understandably. Deals that were in progress are locked down. Our Eastern European desk got very quiet. Middle East has been quiet for a while, although they're buying at larger levels, I understand, commercial and in hotels, but they're still not back to residential in my neighborhood. South Americans have been buying right through the pandemic. They buy quietly under the radar, but they've been buying condos in Manhattan successfully and with great gusto.
I mean, the wisdom that she's got. How often has this been going on for? This foreign buyer uptick? Okay,
bulk buyers were there in 2020 when we were offering them 25, 30, 35% off bulk. Right? Bulk. That's what we worked on. That's when we were all in our caves, March through July. All right,
yeah, you're out there doing bulk deals.
We were reaching
Some
out.
Some of us are still in the cave.
Yeah, when we escaped the caves and came back again, we were working on, I think we discussed it before, moving people up. Buyers in New York in particular that didn't know they could now afford to move from their classic 6 or 7 on Park to a 10 on Fifth. We did a lot of that. Buyers that didn't know they were buyers, we just offered them the opportunity. In 2021, the first 2 quarters, our international buyers were quiet again. A lot was going on those first 2 quarters, an unknown about where the vaccine was going and how New York specifically, US and New York specifically, were handling it. By September of 2021, it was safe to come back. We had the new mayor, and international buyers were talking to us. Those that were buying residential were talking to us nonstop about crime in New York. The publicity, the PR about the increasing crime in New York was really on steroids at that time. And we were trying to talk people down from that and explain to them not only was the crime not any larger than it had been in the recent past, but the new mayor in town was going to specifically focus on that. If we continue to convince and provide the data and the information that crime in New York is under control, you're going to see a lot more international buyers, ones that are higher profile, ones that you'll be calling you, Noah and John, directly. They're coming.
Interesting. Well, let me stay on the point of getting out of the cave, because, you know, once you're out of the cave from COVID, you have to get back to sort of a new normal. And I'm curious to see, you know, one of the patterns that developed during COVID, it was the first thing that people talked about was the exodus of the city versus the suburbs. It's kind of changed now. Now it's about the exurbs versus the city, and, you know, what Jonathan Miller likes to call the dual primary. And you know, Philip, from your perspective, I'm curious, and I'm sorry, I'm going to give you a 2-pronged question. How are you seeing the exurb suburbs across the country? That's the first part. And the second part is, are you seeing, I just kind of wanted to go back to the previous one. Are you seeing a lot of American buyers who would normally buy luxury either, or even just not even luxury, just American buyers who would have normally focused on Manhattan or the suburbs? Are you seeing any American buyers, you know, traveling abroad to purchase in, say, Canada or Mexico or other destinations, simply because now they can work from geographically advantaged places for recreation or something like that?
We're seeing both of those. So back what we call the hybrid work model, which is, you know, that individual who can go outside of the suburban market, you know, get a bigger property. They still may need to commute to their office, but they don't have to commute 5 days a week. So, you know, I think that's a big change, that somebody is willing to give up location, get a bigger property, just because they have more freedom to work from home, at least more of the time, and have maybe, a better quality of life for their family. So we're definitely seeing that. You see it outside Nashville, you see it outside Orlando, you see it in outside Houston, Dallas, those Texas markets. Certainly the states where there's no income tax, you certainly see it there. Florida is a tremendous beneficiary of that. Texas, even Wyoming and Nevada as well. So again, kind of a work from home scenario, saving on taxes as well, which is still a driver. And so, we're seeing that playing out really across the board. And then, to your other question about Americans buying abroad, we are seeing that. We fortunately have almost 400 offices outside the U.S. We're in 79 countries. So we do get a glimpse into the markets, and we're transacting business in those markets. So we're not there just to get referrals back to the U.S. Of course, that's a big benefit as well, but we're doing business right there. So we're able to have our finger on the pulse of the market. Many of those markets, we had a record year last year. We had a record year in 2020. And actually, we're exceeding our forecast this year on an international basis. So we are seeing Americans, looking at Italy. Nikki and I know one of our brokers that's there right now.
Buying for himself.
Buying for himself. But we see it on the Côte d'Azur. There are transactions there. London, we see London. They're going there. There were certain values in those markets. But it's playing out similarly, if you will, to the U.S. If you say, well, the Côte d'Azur is like Palm Beach, so there's some correlation there. And I think, again, it's benefiting from the work from home concept as well.
Yeah, it's a completely different world. And it's such a great insight to hear you tell us from your position up here and get confirmation on all this. And I'm going to wrap this up with the final question over here. This has been really, really an exciting conversation. I want to put you on the spot, both of you guys, Philip and Nikki. And I'm not going to ask you to go too far out, but I'm going to ask us to let's play out 2022. All right, for New York City real estate, let's keep it local. We have a hawkish Fed. We have this geopolitical concerns. We have a bit of credit spreads widening going on right now, a little equity market volatility. We have interest rates rising. We have inflation concerns. So to say that there's no macro issues is that's something. So there's a lot of things going on. So Nikki, let's go with Nikki first, and then we're going to end with Philip. What do you see the Manhattan market doing, in Brooklyn, I guess, as well, the remainder of this year?
Well, I pray every night that developers keep on building. As long as they continue, and they certainly have been very, very proactive during most of this period, as long as they keep on supplying velocity of inventory, opportunities there for the buyer. As long as I can provide a compelling argument why it is an opportunity market, we can see them continuing to purchase. Once we make that transition to a seller's market, the velocity will slow down, the prices will go up, but the velocity and the embracement of the city will again start to retract. So I am not only hopeful and optimistic, I'm seeing that the developers that we speak to, they continue to be flush with cash and investors, continuing to build out those plans, build out those properties at different sizes and price points, which should continue to build. I'm forecasting that fourth quarter will break all records in Manhattan real estate. I hope I'm right.
Yeah, I think price action is going that way.
Yeah.
Philip.
I think that, there's only one New York City. And the people that have owned real estate here over the years have done very well. So yes, there's going to be cyclicality like in all markets. But I look at it in terms of the long term, and I think, it's a safe bet.
Yeah, I agree. John, you have any final thoughts on here?
No, good stuff. I think Nikki made a really good point, and I would just agree with it. I think that there's an underlying assumption of like a contango market in the city in which prices tomorrow are going to be higher than they are today. And I'm worried about that sort of assumption sort of ending if we have higher interest rates, we have geopolitical uncertainty, stock market instability. But I completely agree that with the luxury push that we've seen right now, no, this is something that you and I have been talking about extensively for the last few months, with a luxury push, end of 2021, early 2022, it's really going to juice the prices in terms of the overall market. And it's going to make transactions, the market's certainly going to be higher, but it's going to make the run of the mill transactions a little bit more confusing, especially if you're a broker and you're out there trying to price something. It's going to be a little bit of a trickier market.
Yeah, and I agree. I think, Nikki, don't be surprised to see record Q1 pricing. Don't be surprised to see record Q1 pricing as those luxury sector boosts all that stuff. And I don't think it's going to last. I think it's a function of that luxury sector doing crazy things. We'll see. It might fade a little from that high, but time will tell. This has been incredible.
We'll deal with that.
We'll deal with that.
Exactly.
We had a hell of a run. We had a hell of a recovery, and this market has proved once and again it could come back from the hardest of hits. Right, we've seen it over and over again. Philip White, President and CEO of Sotheby's, thank you so much. That is Nikki Field. That is John Walker. I am Noah Rosenblatt. We are both from Urban Digs. This has been Talking Manhattan. We'll catch you next time.